Well, hello, everyone. Happy Wednesday. I almost said Thursday, but we haven't quite hit Thursday just yet. Welcome to Live at 5. Live at 5 is a stream that I do pretty much every day, aptly at 5, Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday is my normal schedule for these things. Sometimes I come on and I talk about what's going on in the world. Sometimes I bring on a very special guest. We do have a wonderful guest today. I'm really excited about the conversation we're going to be having about how liberty can inspire personal development and creativity and all those things. And we'll talk a little bit more about that in a second. But I do just want to do a quick programming note. So tomorrow, I have the last of my 6 tattoo sessions on my sleeve that I'm working on. Well, the last one for right now. It's not totally done yet, obviously. We've only gotten probably about a quarter of my arm done. Um, but that's okay. Because well, anyway, so far as you guys are concerned, I do have a tattoo appointment tomorrow from like 1 to 5, and so I will not be going live at 5 tomorrow. However, to continue with the libertarian theme that we are going to talk about today, tomorrow at around 6:15 or so, we're going to be doing a drama stream, a libertarian drama stream, because there is, guys, like, I got to tell you, one of the things I love about the Libertarian Party, at least right now, is it is like a soap opera. All the time, there's some new drama going on. So essentially, the too long didn't read version is that the Libertarian Party of Massachusetts, a while back, decided to excommunicate 47 members just because they don't like their speech on Twitter and they don't like that they signed a petition against the executive committee. And so now there are actually 2 libertarian parties in the state of Massachusetts, and they're kind of like warring factions. And this tomorrow is going to be a live hearing with the judicial committee of the Libertarian National Party, basically trying to bring some resolution to these issues. And apparently, I'm told I'm the only one that is going to be around to stream it. Justin O'Donnell didn't want to stream it. I guess Karen Ann Harlos has something else going on. And so I have been charged with streaming the Judicial Committee hearing tomorrow. We will be getting started around 6:15. It's supposed to be getting started around 6:30. I know this is not everyone's thing, but listen, man, like, believe me when I tell you, these libertarian streams and these committee hearings and the conventions, they can be some of the most ridiculous, dramatic things you've ever seen in your life. Sometimes they are downright hilarious. And so we want to provide the people a stream. It's not going to be public if we don't, because they're going to try to hide behind closed doors. So I will be taking the bullet this time around, and we will be doing that starting at around 6:30 tomorrow. Now, I do just also want to remind you guys that if you would like to support the work I'm doing, the very best way you can do that is by heading over to kb.locals.com/support and by joining my locals community. My locals community is the best community on the internet. We have already this week spent about 8 hours on Zoom together. We actually have another Zoom call on Saturday at 3 p.m. We're reading the book Conversations with God. We're going to have a chat about it. You can get access to all of our Zoom calls together, all of our activities, our supporter-only Discord, our writers club. There's so much going on in my locals that if I spent time talking about all the things that are going on in my locals, we would be here another 15 minutes or so. Incognito says, "Happy 11th birthday to my eldest Zoe." I don't know how to speak French. I don't know. I used to be able to speak French. I can't speak it anymore. I spoke French in high school. I can't speak it anymore. But we love you, Incognito, and we love the birthday wishes. But guys, if you want to do that, head over to kb.locals.com/support. You can join up for $5 a month, for $50 a year, which gives you 2 months for free. You can also make a one-time gift, and all of that keeps me in business. It keeps me doing streams. It keeps me hanging out with you guys, explaining the woke agenda, offering some solutions about what to do about it, all that good stuff. And that's all the shilling I have to do for right now. So the guest I'm going to bring on today, you guys know him. He is a libertarian ethicist. He is the organizer of Pork Fest, the greatest libertarian festival in the I mean, it's the only libertarian festival I've been to, but I'm told it's the greatest, and I trust that it's the greatest. He's also just a great guy, and I'm thrilled to have him back on the stream. Welcome, Dennis. How are you doing,
Hi,
Dennis?
Carlin. How you doing?
I'm good. I'm good. Well, I'm really excited to have this chat with you because last time we were on the stream, you were actually interviewing me about Pork Fest, and we kind of got around a topic where I was talking about how Pork Fest last year for me was one of those pivotal moments where I really felt like I started to embrace this whole liberty culture thing, and I started feeling more creative and more open and more self-empowered. And I was kind of like, I got to be honest, like of all the things I expected in participating in this liberty culture, I didn't actually expect to do like personal development and creativity from it. But for me, that's been one of the biggest benefits. And so we decided we wanted to have another stream just to talk about why liberty culture supports personal development and growth. What do you think?
Well, I certainly agree with that. I spent a number of years actually trying to make that connection explicit.
Mm-hmm.
My background was when I was in high school, I had a large group of friends, and I quickly watched some of them spiral down into the depths, and some of them soared up. And the question I had when I went to college was, what causes that difference in outcomes? With
Mm-hmm.
people from the same background, the same kind of family, same kind of culture, and some people just lose it, and some people really soar. And what is it that causes that? And so when I went to Northwestern for my undergraduate, that was the thing I was interested in, and so I majored in psychology. It turned out in those days, psychology was basically studying rats in mazes. So psychology of learning, and it was all
Mm-hmm.
just kind of how do rats kind of make decisions, and then extending that to other animals and to children and to things like that. And that's not really what I was interested in. For a number of other reasons, I actually dropped out of undergraduate for a few years. And I went to University of Colorado where that had a clinical program.
Mm.
And I said, well, okay, obviously studying rats and mazes isn't really what I'm interested in. So, maybe if I'm dealing with people, what's going on there? But unfortunately, in those days, clinical psychology only had a disease type of model.
Yeah.
So the only people they dealt with were, the schizophrenics and the catatonics and the depressives. And then, if you're lucky, you get into some of the neurotics.
Yeah.
But my question was, kind of the generally more healthy people who live around us. How can we enhance their lives? And part of that, how are those lives retracted? How are those lives diminished over
Mm-hmm.
time? So I gave up on psychology. I did finish my undergraduate in psychology, but then I went on to graduate programs and two other graduate programs in two other fields. But I just gave up. I just thought, well, these are questions that aren't actually being asked, and nobody cares about this. And I got into high levels of math and market science and research and things like that. One of the researchers came to me one day and said, well, there's this group meeting, and it's called Insight Seminars, and they look at how you can improve your life. And I was like,
Mm-hmm.
oh, I'll go. It was the easiest sell that guy had ever made.
Mm-hmm. Isn't it
um,
great when things just click like that and you're like, yeah,
I
I'll
was
do
like,
that, whatever.
I had
Why not?
always been interested in that. And it
Mm-hmm.
turned out that there had been this whole personal development movement that I was unaware of largely,
Mm-hmm.
which is surprising because I was in Boulder, Colorado, and you would think I would have known that.
Yeah.
And there was also at the same time, there was this new branch of psychology being started called positive psychology.
I am deeply familiar with that. Yeah, that was one of the areas I focused on in my graduate work.
So you actually had classes in positive psychology?
Oh yeah, and the cool thing about the classes that I took is I was really able to mold the classes that I took to my different interest areas. So I did actually have a specific class in positive psychology, but then I went out of my way because I guess I kind of was stumbling around psychology, kind of looking for the same answers as you were, Dennis. I started studying. Well, I mean, I started studying industrial organizational psychology just because I was miserable in my work experiences and I wanted to understand why, and I wanted to help create better work experiences because I was like, I'm going to be in this for like the next 50 years or so. So I might as well like not be hating my life while I'm going to work all the time. And then I ended up getting into like workplace bullying and studying really toxic situations in work environments. And I was like, oh my God, there's got to be a better way than this. And then I went from workplace bullying into studying coping and stress management and things like that. And from stress management, I got into mindfulness. And I
Mm,
had always poo pooed mindfulness. So, like in
right.
the very beginning, I was like, oh, that's woo woo nonsense, like whatever. But what was interesting about it is like, you kind of, at least how it worked for me, is I backed into like, I went from like psychology and the literature into understanding stress management, into understanding coping strategies, and then all of a sudden, oh, this mindfulness stuff, this personal empowerment stuff, if people are taking responsibility for their perspectives and their mindsets and their behaviors and how they're showing up in the world, it tends to lead to happier outcomes. And actually,
Mhm.
from there, that was how I got really into spirituality because, and that's not something we'll get into deep on this stream, but you know, in my spiritual belief system, it really came from studying mindfulness and then studying the psychological research around mindfulness and what it did to the brain, and that goes to meditation, and then meditation leads to my spiritual practice. And
Mhm.
so, like all of these things just kind of lined up in a little bit of like a perfect storm of circumstance, and it was never actually an area that I anticipated going into, but I've often thought a lot about how, you know, it's funny, like going back and looking at my first book, which I wrote in like 2017 when I was still a Democrat and I was still, it's about mindfulness in the workplace. If I read that book now, it sounds like a very like, you know, some might call it conservative, some might call it like libertarian book, because it literally is all about personal empowerment.
Mhm.
And I didn't realize that when I wrote it. I was just writing about how the brain works and about how you can make situations happier for yourself, but it is deeply about personal empowerment. And I've often thought about how I think one of the anecdotes to woke culture is simply personal empowerment and
Mhm.
taking responsibility for your life and what you're contributing and all of these things. So it is kind of funny how all roads lead to libertarianism at the end of the day.
Well, I didn't know that. You know,
Yeah.
I had transitioned from a democratic socialist to libertarian about 4 years or 5 years before I took any of these personal growth workshops, um, and I immediately saw the parallel.
Mhm.
Immediately saw the parallel when I started taking those workshops. I was going, oh, you know, because the way I kind of see it is that we want things in our lives. We want a lives that that is well lived. We want something
Mhm.
that is really fantastic, but we have obstacles that stop us. And
Yep.
some of those obstacles are external, right? There are people who block us and laws that stop us from starting up a business or being able to associate with whom we want or be able to, whatever those things are. And that's kind of what libertarianism really focuses on.
Mhm.
Interestingly, though, the thing that blocks us even more are the internal obstacles,
Yes.
the blockages that we have inside ourselves, whether that we got either from our childhood or our
Ron
families
Paul has no internal
our
obstacles right now.
or our teachers. Yeah, that's Ron Paul there. He's very anxious because he wants to play frisbee. I better not say the word.
No.
Um, and uh, but those prevent us from even trying to start things or prevent us from going ahead. And so, personal growth, what I call personal growth, personal development, self-help, whatever you want to, positive psychology, cognitive
Mhm.
psychology, whatever you want to call that general area, is looking at what is it, how are we living our lives, and what do we really want in our lives, which is really, that turns out to be a really hard problem to solve, right?
Yes.
Most of the time, the things that we think we want, we don't really want, and we don't really clearly identify what it is that we want. Stop
I totally agree with you on that. I think that people have a really hard time kind of figuring out and frankly being honest with themselves about what they want. This is actually something someone asked me in the chat what the title of my first book is. I actually have a copy of it right here. It's called Zen Your Work, Create Your Ideal Work Experience Through Mindful Self-Mastery, available on Amazon, I think. But I actually read about this in the first book. There's a whole chapter about kind of figuring out what you want your career to be. And the first step to that is being honest with yourself about what you want. Because I think a lot of times people they go down the road that they think they should go down based on society's expectations, or based on what their parents want them to do, or based on what they think is going to make them the most money. And they aren't actually honest with themselves about what they want. So I tell the story in the book about an old friend of mine who I actually met on the very first job I ever had. I was working in the admissions office at a university, so kind of like buttoned up and proper job. And he wore a suit and tie. He was like a military recruit. It was at a military school, and he was a military recruiter for the school, even though he's like totally a hippie. So I never quite understood why. But he like wore this uniform to work every day, very buttoned up and proper, was going to all these like recruiting fairs and all this stuff. But and we worked together for like 5 years in that job, and he hated it. He hated it because he didn't want to be inside all day. He didn't want to be doing recruiting. And he actually ended up eventually quitting, just having no idea where he was going to go, and bounced around to some odd jobs. And he ended up washing windows, of all things, which doesn't sound like, if someone says like I'm a professional window washer, that's not necessarily the most impressive thing in the world from a societal standpoint. But guess what? He was one of those window washers that was like scaling tall buildings and going down the sides, and he got to go to a new location every day and swing around on this thing that like looks really cool. And he loved it. And so that was what he ended up doing, being a professional window washer. And then I think that I heard that he like started his own window washing business. And it's like, if he had just been honest with himself about what he wanted to do, which is like a career that was versatile, that got him outside into nature, that he was doing different things every day, that he didn't have to wear a suit and tie, he probably could have gotten started much earlier with that and been a whole lot happier in the time that he was doing it. But it was like that honesty was the hardest piece.
Yeah, and you talk about honesty, and in a way, I think that that's almost too harsh, Carlin, to talk
Mm-hmm.
about, because
Okay.
so often it's not that we're being dishonest; it's that we just don't know.
That's fair.
A lot of the stuff, a lot of the techniques that we utilize in the various programs I've worked with, or taken, or seen, or done over the number of years, has to do with trying to figure out, given all of our biases and our assumptions, and we ought to be doing this and that, what is it that we really, really, really want in our lives? And it's really hard. I mean, you see the symbols in the back. That was
Yes.
a 6-month program that was basically focused on why am I here? Why am I here on this earth? And it was a 6-month, very, very advanced. I mean, you had to have the pre-requirements of it were, some of the programs were another 6-month program. So they were very advanced work. So it's not all that obvious and easy. And I'll just give you an example. The 2 greatest blessings in my life, Carlin, neither of which I wanted. I actually positively stated that I did not want. I never wanted to get married. I never wanted a child. Those are the 2 greatest blessings of my life. Now, was I being dishonest with myself? No, I wasn't being dishonest with it. But I had assumptions, I had problems, I had concerns, I had false narratives, I had false, it was just, there was just so much wrapped up there that I had to work through to get to a place where I could say, oh, well, maybe this is something that I really do want. So it's a matter of discovery as opposed to honesty, I think.
I agree with that. No, I think that you're probably right about the wording. And I think that, I mean, when I say honest, I think that people are afraid of really tuning in to the thing that makes them happy a lot of times. And they might not even know specifically like what that thing is, but maybe it's like an emotion, or like something that that like, I mean, for example, I'll give an example in the chat. So like I look at someone like Tim Poole. Tim Poole has built this massive, massive empire of success where he's printing money, right? Now, I would argue that the thing that Tim Poole wanted more than anything else, what drove him to all this massive success, is he wanted a feeling of security, because he's been homeless before. He knows what it's like to have to be beholden to someone else. And he wanted to be able to build something that would give him constant financial security, so he would never have to be homeless again, so he could always provide for his friends if he wanted to, and that wouldn't leave him answering to someone else. And it's kind of like, and maybe he knew that intrinsically, and maybe it was just that that was the road that it ended up going down, and he's like a really hard worker, and so it happened from that respect. But I think kind of like tuning into, how do I want to feel? What are the things that are most important to me in my life? It becomes a lot easier to kind of go back to where you were at with like removing obstacles. It becomes a lot easier to be honest with ourselves about what we want if we don't put restrictions on ourselves about what that thing might be. Does that make sense?
Mm. It does. It does. In thinking about this, our talk today, I put up a whole
Mhm.
bunch of characteristics that I think where
Mhm.
libertarianism and personal development are very closely aligned, and
Cool.
where authoritarianism and unconsciousness, you may even say unmindfulness, are
Mhm.
very much aligned. And I think we're actually talking about two of those areas. One is
Oh.
the one is the epistemic. You know,
Mhm.
what do we know about the world? How much do we really understand the world? And the authoritarian perspective is, well, we have these rulers, and they are,
Mhm.
we try to pretend they're omniscient and prescient and omnipotent, and so all we have to do is just rely on them and follow them, and they know what the right things to do and how we should do it, right?
Mhm.
So
Yeah.
that's the authoritarian mindset, and that's reflected in the unmindful, the unconscious mindset. And the unconscious mindset is, well, I'm doing this because this is what you do. This is how I was raised, and this is what I was taught, and that's just what I do. And I don't
Mhm.
need to think about it because that's what I do. And it's now juxtapose that to the libertarian, which is that knowledge is infinite, it's distributed, it's hidden, it's impossible to know most things. And so libertarianism is where authoritarianism is, well, we know everything and we can control everything, just kind of like with COVID or with all of the the war
Mhm.
on terror, the war on drugs. We know exactly what to do. We can use guns because we know what to do. Libertarianism is,
Mhm.
well, we don't really know. We don't know even first order effects, let alone second order, third order, consequences of consequences of consequences out into an infinite future. We just don't know these things. So what it
Mhm.
is we need to free people to allow them to explore this space. And that's reflected in the personal growth area,
Yeah.
where the personal growth is, look, we can barely even understand ourselves.
Mhm.
How do we get off thinking that we can control other people? Right?
Right.
Right?
Right.
We have to work. It's a full-time job trying to understand what is it that we love about it. You love, what do we hate? What are we doing just because it's a duty or because we think it's a have to? What is it that really makes our hearts sing and makes us really kind of blossom out? Um,
Well, and then the flip
you
side
know,
of that too is like, oh, sorry. The flip side of that too is like, if we if we can barely get to a place where we're controlling ourselves, and certainly we don't want any control over other people. The flip side of that is, why should we expect other people to tell us how to run our lives and how to comport ourselves in any given circumstance? Because they're the same way. They're not figuring themselves out either. Why would we give them license over us?
Oh my goodness. Can you imagine thinking that a politician is so self-aware? I mean, these,
Oh
their
God.
relationship to truth is so off. They're lying to themselves all the time. They're lying to everyone all
Yeah.
the time. And now we're supposed to pretend like these people have some special insight into our lives and how to make our lives better. We know that that's not true. We just
Yeah.
prima facie, we know that that's not true. So there's no reason to even pretend. Um,
Great.
the other thing that we were talking about though was goals. In the authoritarian mindset, well, the rulers know all, and so they will choose the product. They will choose the project. We have to labor for them. Either through laboring directly, reports and stuff like that, or through that retroactive enslavement where they take our past labors stored in money and use it for their projects. So yeah, we shouldn't be working for ourselves for our own projects, because that would be selfish. Our rulers know all, and they can see into this future. So we have to labor with their consent, and we just do what they say. And that's reflected also in the unconscious, unmindful perspective, which is, my parents knew, my teachers know, I don't have to really think about what my goals are. I just have to do what I've been set out to. You go to elementary school, you go to high school, you go to college, and then you do get your job. Just go along the treadmill.
Go ahead.
And that's totally different from the libertarian mindset, right? The libertarian mindset is well, what is it that makes your heart sing? What is it that brings you alive? How do you figure that out? And knowing that your first guesses are going to be wrong. And that's okay. That's okay. This is an iterative process. We're going to just try these things out. And then, you invest your own labor in the areas that you choose, and then you go, oh geez, no, not that, and then you finally find it. But there's no force in the libertarian society, right? Is that you're not forced to do this, forced to do that. Right. You actually have control of your body and your labor and your past labor to expend there however you want in order to find these goals. And then that's reflected similarly in the personal growth area, where you're constantly saying, what is it inside of you? One of the there's a couple of tricks that we used in various teachings in personal growth. But one of the things is, notice what it is that you're doing. Because you might say, I have to do X, I have to do Y. Well, then look at how you actually spend your time.
Yeah.
Right? If you're not spending your time on X and Y, well, there's something, you're out of integrity.
There's something wrong.
There's something wrong. There's a mismatch here. And that's an area for exploration.
Yeah.
I did 3 men's, is it 3? 1, 2, 3. I did 3 men's initiations. So these are initiations into like kind of this Iron John thing where you go out in the woods.
Did you go do a sweat lodge?
I've done sweat lodges.
Sweat lodges are the best. Those are my favorite.
But one of the big things that they do is called inspection. So people will say, this is what I'm doing, and over time, and then the men will just call bullshit. Can I say bullshit on this?
You can absolutely.
Thank you. And they're just called bullshit. They go, wait a minute. You told me last week that you were doing this, and you've been doing this. You're out of integrity here. What's going on? And now that's where the real meat comes in. I mean, if you're open to it, if you're not just going to shut it down and say, oh, you just say, well, that's interesting. I didn't think about that. Let me think about that. What is going on? Why am I not acting in line with what my stated goals are?
Yeah.
And so much of this is unconscious. That's why I push back on the honesty, dishonesty, because it's just not that. It's hard stuff. This is really hard stuff.
No, you're right. And I think when I use the term honesty, I think about, I think about that. Maybe what it is I'm skipping ahead that process of discovery, because there is a process of discovery into going into, finding what makes you happy and really and realizing that. I just want to acknowledge Catherine Scully. Thank you for being a member of the channel for 16 months. And she sent in a member chat. It says, "You're describing all the problems I have with public school. It took me many years looking back at my time there to understand why it never felt right to me." And I do think that so often people try to jam themselves into these circumstances that just don't feel right for whatever reason. I mean, to be honest, and it's like, and what you describe with this process of like, you try something out and maybe you move on to the next thing and the next thing. It's like, I think that the very best way we learn is through failure. And just by throwing stuff at the wall and saying, okay, this worked, this made me feel good, or this didn't work and this made me feel bad. And I think a lot of times we might end up in situations where we feel like we should be in this situation, but it just doesn't feel right. I think for me, 2020 with like all the like conservatives I was around, and like no shade on conservatives, but there was always something about me being kind of like in that world that just didn't feel right. It wasn't that they weren't very nice people. It wasn't that I didn't agree with them on some things, but it was just like, it was not the right fit for me. And that's not because they're bad people or they believe bad things, and it's no knock on them at all. It was just not the place where I belonged. And I didn't discover the place where I belonged until I started hanging out with the LPNH. And I was like, oh my God, this feels so much better to me than being in that other environment. And you know what? One of the reasons I think that is, and I've been thinking a lot about this lately, just in terms of like, we're going to touch on the Florida stuff at the end of the stream, but you know, I keep thinking like, how do conservatives get themselves in this place where they're like on the back foot all the time, and then when they do eventually attack, they sometimes go way overboard of what is necessary and required. And you know what I've thought about is the fact that conservatives are people who are they're rule followers. They're the people who stand in the straight line. They're literally the people who went in the Capitol on January 6th and went between the velvet ropes during a riot. Like, I mean, that's who these people are. And there's nothing wrong with that, but it's like they're waiting for someone to tell them the rules and tell them what to do. And I don't think you can truly step into yourself unless you look inside yourself for the rules and know that, you know, isn't it amazing? And you're obviously you have more years of life experience on this planet than I do currently. But I do think it's amazing to get a little bit to have your 12th, 29th birthday and to kind of look back and say, my parents didn't know shit. Like, they didn't know anything. I mean, they knew some stuff, but it's like they didn't know what was best for me, or my teachers didn't know what's best for me, or people when I was a kid looking up at people my age now, I'm like, oh my
Yep.
God, they really didn't know. And I think that that's only a revelation that you could have through experience. And I think once you do have that revelation, you can start to look inside yourself and say, okay, then what do I really want?
So much there. Who was the person who gave you the super chat?
It was Catherine Scully.
Yeah, Catherine. You know, it's so interesting because we homeschooled,
Mhm.
and we used a lot of these techniques with our daughter. And so our daughter was actually out in the world working at age 10. And she was actually working in a business at 14. She had her own little business at 10, and 14 she was working in a business. By 16, she was opening up the dojo herself, and she was like their top salesman. She At 16, she was working more hours than the owners were working.
Wow.
Um, and but what we did was we were constantly strewing. That's the idea, is strewing. You put different things out in front of her so that she tries this and tries that, tries this. So by the time that she was, I don't know, she was in community college. By the time she was like 18 or something like that, she had a really good idea. You talked about your window
Mhm.
washer guy.
Yep.
You know, she knew she did not want to be in an office. She did not want to do work on the computer. She did not want to do, you know, she knew all these things. And we were able to kind of gravitate her to occupational therapy. She became an OTA coming out of the community college. She had taken enough classes that so she was working by 19 as an OTA. And now she's in a master's program and, you know, finishing up a master's program for occupational therapy directly. But she actually got that experience, that trial and error experience early on in her career. I think that that's one of the big problems. I mean, we're way off topic, but I
That's
think
okay.
that's one of the big problems with schooling, especially institutional schooling. It's
I
not just
agree.
governmental schooling, but it's institutional schooling where you're segregated away from the adult world. That's not how we educated children for millennia.
Right.
The way we educated children in the past is children were with the adults, watching what adults did, and say, how can I do that in order to fit into this real life world that I need to fit into? Instead, we take the children now and we put them in an artificial environment, in a large institutional building. They work on toy problems that no one gives a darn about. They study things that they're generally not interested in, and frankly, they'll probably never ever even use.
No.
And so waste of their time. They don't know, they don't understand what the adult world is, and they're getting no experience to say, oh, you know, I kind of like that. I don't like that. You know. So my daughter was actually, you know, by the time she was 18, she was so far ahead of me. You know, I did 3 different programs. I did an undergrad and 2 grad programs: psychology, computer science, and business. So I was just like all over the place. And psychology I was doing, learning, and I was doing, and I just was just kind of lost almost all the time because I didn't really know what it was that I wanted to do. And I think the earlier that we get, the more realistic we get the children into adult situations, and the more chances they have to kind of experience it. It's so funny when we ask these institutionalized children, what do you want to be when you grow up? How do they know?
They have no idea.
They don't know.
This is why they all want to be influencers, Dennis.
Or they want to be teachers because that's the only thing that they see. I want to be a teacher.
No, you don't want to be a teacher.
What their parents are, which is like just one of so many things. Or then they watch the YouTube. They say I'll be that. And we're not giving them the breadth of experience that we should have. So I don't blame you, Han, what the troubles that you're going through there. I was lost for most of my programs. I was in 10 different educational programs, formal schooling programs, and only 2 fit me. Only 2 fit me. Only 2 that I feel like, I'm on track here. I'm excited.
Well, there's a lot to keep unpacking there, but I just want to say, guys, if you're enjoying the chat with Dennis so far, please make sure to mount that like button for me. Please make sure you're subscribed to the channel if you're not already. And Nuclear, if you're in the chat, you know how to get unblocked, dude. You need to email me. You need to apologize for being a dick, and I will unblock you. But this is the last chance, Nuclear, because this is the 2nd time. But you know how to get in touch with me if you want to get unblocked. So I mean, one of the things, Dennis, I think to being able to really kind of like step into your greatness, for lack of a better buzzword term, is like you have to get past your own internal obstacles. And I do think that the obstacles that we put in front of ourselves are oftentimes greater than any obstacle we're going to encounter in the world. Most of the time, those obstacles have to do with fear, right? Fear that like, I can't achieve this. I won't be able to pull it off. I can't write that book. I don't know how social media works. I don't know how this works. I don't know how to run a business. How do I build a business if I am afraid of even trying to run a business and things like that? What are some of the ways do you think that people can kind of start to work past internal obstacles that might be holding them back?
Yeah, that was actually one of the items on my list, the comfort zone. It's interesting. We were talking a little bit about schooling, but so much of government is instilling this fear of failure, of doing exactly what we talked about, which is going out, trying things. That didn't work. Well, you could call each one of those that didn't works a failure. But that's how we learn. That's how we explore. That's how we connect to what's deep inside of us that we don't know. We do not come out with a manual that says Dennis Pratt should be doing X, Y, and Z. We do get a lot of people telling us you should do X, Y, and Z, right?
Yeah.
The trouble is that they're not the real Dennis hiding inside. I have to pull that out. I have to somehow uncover that, discover it, and allow it to come forth. So, in the authoritarian mindset, of course, our rulers, they know everything. They know what our goals should be, and they say, "Don't you do anything that we tell you not to." You say we're going to keep you nice and safe and well protected, but they're truncating your life. They're truncating your life in a way that they imagine it. And we do that to ourselves in the unmindful life, right? Now, unmindful life, we go, well, this is what my culture says. This is what I ought to be doing, And so I fit into this comfort zone, and I'm not going to stretch outside of that comfort zone. Now, juxtapose that to the libertarian and the personal development world, right? The libertarian world says, look, nobody knows this stuff. Nobody can keep you safe. Don't fall into the Venus flytrap that the authoritarians are setting for you. That is not a nice, cozy place. They are going to consume you. Instead, find out what's impossible. Allow a billion lights to shine and to go over, and you just don't know what's going to come up. Libertarians are probably the most entrepreneurial group.
Yes.
Because we have this mindset that that the world is not fixed, that the world actually, that our potential can be expressed in all different ways if we can get rid of all the obstacles. I'll give you an example. I'm one of my 32 projects. I guess I'm now down to about 22.
Only 22 projects,
I've been
Dennis?
axing them heavily.
Slacking on the
I
projects.
know. Well, there's so much here, and but one of them was doing these bus tours of the Free State. Right. So I would get like a luxury bus and get people on who are from out of state, and I'd get them on. They go for a 6-hour, 7-hour tour of some location, and we'd be telling them all the different stories about the different cultures and the different community centers and the housing and jobs and crypto and history stories and then we would take them to a business, and we would take a porcupine business, and we would take them to. So it's just a lot of fun, a lot of activity. I'm not doing this to make money. I mean, what the heck? So I just found out, because I'm not really paying that much attention, that they're not sending me the money that the people paid for me. I paid for the bus. I paid for all this stuff, right?
Right.
I never got the money that the people sent, because I hadn't filled out all the tax forms.
Right.
What tax forms? What are you talking about? I'm just trying to run this thing. But now I have this forced labor thing, which is I must report to the government why they should not be stealing some of this money for themselves. I'm going, just leave me be. I'm creating this like lovely, beautiful thing here, and they want me to, and it's just, I can't tell you how irritated I am. And my initial reaction was, well, I'm not going to do it.
Yeah.
Then I'm not going to do it. So a libertarian is very aware that you do not put those types of external obstacles on people just creating things, just creating new things and new experiences. In personal growth, right? A lot of what we do when we do personal growth, we have to ask ourselves, a bunch of questions, and this kind of winds up with what you were asking me.
Yeah.
But I think a good question is, what am I pretending not to know? Okay. And really ask yourself, what am I pretending not to know? And take
what am I pretending not to know? I really like that. What am I pretending I don't know that I actually do know, but I just don't want to admit to myself?
Yep. Where am I not challenging myself? And take some time. I actually I wrote an essay that was, I had 5 of these questions or something like that, and I just suggested that you rotate them one a day. How could I have been a person more close to the person I really want to be yesterday? What could I have done that would have put me as closer to that type of person that I want to be?
Yeah. How I think about that.
Focus on that for that day.
How I think about that is, an exercise I might do is like, okay, I'm a person that I talk about doing this all the time, and so far have failed in this endeavor. I want to go back to the gym and lose weight. Okay, I have to fast forward in my head for like 6 months, and I'm that person that's been at the gym regularly. I've lost a whole ton of weight. I'm gaining more muscle. I'm doing all this stuff. So I try to fast forward to that person in my head and say, how would that person behave? Would that person sleep in when the alarm goes off, or would that person get her ass out of bed and drive down the street and go to the Planet Fitness? And trying to and sometimes it's almost like when you get started, because you called it a comfort zone, it feels uncomfortable, and you might try to come up with every excuse in the book, and then you have to go, okay, I'm playing the part of the person who is going to the gym and losing weight, and you might not see yourself as that person yet, but if you show up every single day and do the things you should be doing, then eventually you will see yourself as that person.
Yeah, I actually, yeah. One of the classes, I didn't teach a lot of classes, but one of the classes I did teach was goal setting and how to achieve long-term goals. I'm fairly famous for setting New Year's resolutions and keeping them for a full year.
You keep New Year's resolutions?
I keep New Year's
Wow, you're a
resolutions.
madman, Dennis.
Yeah.
Madman.
So, for example, from what you just told me, I see a number of classic errors that you're making that I would recommend that you not do.
Okay.
Not do. So the first thing is when you notice that you're not going to the gym, you admit it to yourself. You say,
Oh,
I'm
I
not
admit
losing
it. Oh,
weight.
I admit it to I own it. I'm like, no, I did not go to the gym
I
today.
have not, I have chosen not to start this thing yet. I'm
Yeah.
not doing this,
Yeah.
and you don't say, I wish I would, you just say, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. Be really clear so that when you do get into choice, you can go into choice. The second, there's actually, a lot of things, but one of the things is I look at the first baby step. Okay. So it's not 6 months down the line. It's not the goal isn't I'm going to lose 40 pounds. It's nothing like that. Okay. The goal. So I actually had a similar goal years ago. And my goal was that I would stick my foot in the door of the gym every day. Okay. So I needed something that I knew I couldn't fail at. And I don't think I did every day, but I think it was like 3 days out of the week or something like that. So, so that I could feel like I'm success. What you want to do is you want to set up this cycle of success going. So it's not, I mean, of course, I stick my foot in the door. I go, well, I'll just go in for a sauna. I'll go on the exercise. So all of a sudden you're actually doing stuff. I highly recommend that you live in bonus. So what most people do is they set like these really aggressive goals. I am going to do this fantastic thing. But really the way to get to that is taking that first step. That's the hard part. It's getting over that inertia. So if you focus on something that's really easy to break that inertia, that you can win at 100% of the time and just keep going at it, guess what? The cause will be that.
Yes.
But don't focus on that. Focus on getting over that inertia. Anyway, I didn't want to get too much into personal growth. I thought, but
I like that. I like that a lot, Dennis. I think it's a great way to look at it. I just want to call out a few chats that I liked, and there's a question in the chat as well. Deborah says, I called them lessons learned rather than failures. I totally get calling it lessons learned. Like if you do something and it doesn't go the way you want it to, okay, what did I learn from this? What can I do differently next time? What made me feel good? What didn't? But you know what? I'm gonna make the argument that I actually like embracing the term failure, because I wish people would start to change their mindset around failure and recognize that failure oftentimes it's just part of the process. Like one of the things that I've always hated more than almost anything else is doing sales. I hate sales. I hate pitching myself. It's like I actually used to have massive anxiety around it. And one of the things that I started telling myself when I had to force myself to do sales was that yes exists in the land of no. So the more no's I would get on any given day, the more yeses I would get as well. And if I wasn't racking up those no's, then I wasn't going to get to yes eventually. And I think that, if people are so afraid of failing that they don't even get started and don't even try, I think that one of the problems is they need to change their relationship with failure. Like the reality is that no matter whether you're doing a big project like this Liberty Bus thing or like a smaller thing like me getting my butt out of bed early and going to the gym, like there is going to be failure at some point in this process. And it's not about avoiding failure entirely. It's about, okay, what do we do when we hit that moment and how do we move past that failure? How do you feel about that?
yeah, I mean, I did, both a goal setting thing for personal growth, but I also did a lot of consultation for new product design. That was actually my area of research, was the design of new products. Primarily, my research was primarily in areas where the industry is not yet formed. It's a new industry forming. So I had one term that I used all the time, and that was you need to fail to succeed. Okay, so fail to succeed sounds terrible, right?
Yeah.
But you need to fail in order to succeed.
Yeah.
And as a matter of fact, now they have a term called fast failure. You really
Yes.
want to fail fast,
Fail fast and cheaply.
fast and cheaply. And that's what we did. We did a lot of rapid prototyping of different things. And, we would start, we would come up with some idea for a new product in a new industry. We say, okay, well, maybe it's like this. And we would bring in customers and test them. And of course, on something really cheap. It might be just like some sheets or even an oral description. And we would find out it sucks, okay, but then we would iterate and say, okay, well, maybe this or maybe that. We're getting feedback, and then our next iteration still sucks, okay, but we're getting more feedback, okay. Now we might do 2 or 3 different probes. So what you want is lots of probes when you don't know how to succeed, right? In a new industry, you do not know what the product will be. A lot of people think that, Apple succeeded because it was the first to market in the personal computer thing. Apple was like number 17.
Yeah.
It wasn't the first. I always had to fight with these people because they go, oh no, we can't. We don't have time to do any testing. We don't have any time to do rapid prototyping. We don't have any time to do iterations because someone's going to beat us to the market, and we have to get this out here. And this is good enough. And so let's spend $16 million on this thing. I'm going, wait. You have no idea what customers want. You have no idea what they value. I can tell you this initial product is going to suck. And it's going to be extremely expensive to put out on the market and then iterate it from there. Let's do as much rapid prototyping as we possibly can in the lab and get as much feedback, get as many probes as we possibly can, find out where the failures are, failure, and then see something that we actually want to put that type of investment behind. But it's the same thing with our lives. With our lives, we don't really know. And that's why I talked about the epistemic problem here. The knowledge, we do not have that knowledge of ourselves. What 90% of our brain is unconscious, and so much of it is hidden underneath all this glop that we learned when we were children, and stupid assumptions and stuff like that. It's and the unconscious person, and I think you talked a little bit about some of the conservative people, and not all conservatives are like this.
Not all conservatives. We're generalizing. We have to.
Right. But a lot of them are just so set on tradition and tribe. The tribe does this, and this is what we do, and it's very different from the libertarian perspective because we're like going infinite possibilities. What doesn't work for me doesn't necessarily see. I don't have to keep doing it. I'm not. So I think trying things out and allowing failure. And that's actually one of my biggest complaints about schooling, about the way that industrial schooling is done, institutional schooling is done.
It doesn't allow for failure.
It doesn't allow for failure. And you're talking about a person who, I did well. I did well in school. But I did so well because the schools were kind of beneath me.
Oh, I feel the same way. I never even did homework or anything, and I graduated third in my class, never even doing homework, and it's just like, and it's like there's no learning there either because for me, I was always so anxious about at least after high school, which was just way too easy for me, but when I got into college and things, I was so anxious about getting the grade that I'm not actually sure I learned as much as I could have because I was just so focused on getting the grade. And I thank God that when I reached my doctorate, I was actually able to mold the coursework to the areas that I was most interested in because I still wanted that grade, but at least I was able to kind of put my own kind of spin on things. So I was able to get the content knowledge that I wanted as well.
Yeah, I don't remember who the researcher was. I think it was Debbie Dvorak or something like that. Anyway, she wrote a number of papers, especially around girls. The well put together girls who were straight A's and all this type of stuff. And they were always the first in class and they raised their hand and stuff like that. Well, what happens to them when they get into a really challenging program?
I bet they don't do so well and they freak out.
A lot of them fold.
Yeah.
A lot of them falter because they go, oh my God, this is terrible. This is horrible. And in reality, that's where they should have been that entire time. They were in a program that was way, way, way beneath them. And they got trained. Well, as long as it's easy and facile, well, then it's not a problem. No, 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 no. The where you should be is where it's so super hard that everyone's failing and you have the stick-to-itiveness to make it a success. That's
Mhm.
where the real value lies, guys. Not in doing something that is easy for you for the rest of your life and some sort of rote thing where it doesn't feed your soul, it doesn't feed doesn't make you so excited, jump out of bed and go, I'm going to tackle that problem. I think I got a solution to it. You
Yeah.
know,
I
and
mean,
that
like
was
go ahead.
actually the thing that excited me. I said 10 different programs. I had 2 programs that were challenging to me.
Mhm.
To tell you the truth, I still got straight A's. So I probably could have gone higher, but it was so exciting to be like, oh my God, I don't know how to fix this. I don't know how to do this, and wrestle with, and then all of a sudden, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
nirvana.
Well, because it's like you have to overcome a challenge in order to achieve that like satisfaction of like, yes, I
Mm,
did it. Like it's that feeling of accomplishment that you don't get when something is easy. I mean,
mhm.
like I remember like way 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 back in the day when I used to run more. It wasn't anything for me to run like a 5K back in the day. I could get up and run a 5K and be fine. But like right now, if I went to the gym and I ran a mile on the treadmill, oh my god, that would be like a Herculean feat because I haven't run in so long. And so like but if I mean, and I'm picturing in my mind's eye that I'm gonna go back to the gym. I'm gonna run on the treadmill. I know the first time I run a mile on the treadmill without stopping, I'm gonna have this like massive feeling of fulfillment because for where I'm at right now, that is going to be a Herculean effort. And sometimes we need to take on hard challenges, and it's certainly not gonna happen the first time. I'm probably gonna have to go through some. I'm gonna have to do like the couch to 5K training program or something like that. So like 30 days to 5K or whatever. But like the moment that you hit that goal after you've worked so hard for it and you've shown up and you failed and you showed up and you failed and you showed up and you didn't figure it out, and the minute you hit it, that's the sweet spot. It's not about just showing up and doing it right the first time. There's nothing fun about that. It's not a game,
Yep.
right?
Yep. Yeah. I think there's the personal growth is really looking at so many areas where we don't know the answers. It's
Mhm.
all exploratory. It's all discovery. We have these obstacles that we're trying to get through, and it's just trying things, but not beating ourselves up about it.
Yeah.
Not trying to find a way of gently doing that. And I think that that's the same thing with libertarianism. The
Yep.
answer is we do not know how to solve the drug problem. We do not know how to, we've never known how to do that. Using guns is not the answer. Oh, well, we'll just use a gun here. That will solve it. Well, it hasn't solved it. It didn't solve it for alcohol. It doesn't solve it for this. So stop trying to pretend that you know the answer and that all we need to do is to hurt more people, right?
Mhm.
Right?
Yeah.
So the authoritarian solution is, I know the answer. Well, we need more policing. No, you don't. You do not know the answer.
Mhm.
Um, and at the very least, you could try to not do harm while you're making your failures.
Mhm.
I mean, look at authoritarianism on almost every single government program. Every single government program has failed, and they keep on saying, "Well, all we need is more of that government program, more of that government program." But it fails. They don't acknowledge failure because they want to keep this pretense of perfection.
Mhm.
Right?
Mhm.
They're
Yeah.
not willing to say, I don't know. I was having an argument with a guy. We were starting a business, and you know, I'm like, I'm open kimono. Look, I'm doing this. I don't know how to do it. I'm interested in your feedback. Tell me where I'm wrong, please. Okay.
Yeah.
So, and I'll take it with a grain of salt, and try different things. But I still have. I'm not going to run it as you tell me to. But well, he wanted that pretense of perfection.
Mhm. Mhm. I
He
think
wanted,
conservative a lot of conservatives want that too.
yeah,
I think it's a
and
big problem.
he wants people to think that he's got it all together. He knows
Yeah.
exactly right, and well, guess what? When you set up that expectation and then you fall short, now people are going, well, he kind of lied to me about that. I got
Mhm.
cheated. Whereas you say, look, I don't really know. I'm going to try this. What do you think about this? Oh, yeah, I kind of like this. It's really good. I thought, so, building it up with customers as opposed to, deciding what it is in some sort of ivory tower and then delivering it down. The government is definitely on that ivory tower, deliver it down, and then ignore the results, ignore the failures. Because I just don't know a government program that succeeds.
Yeah.
And then it fails in so many ways. It usually in the primary, but if not in the primary, then in all the consequences to the consequences to the consequences. You're causing all these perturbations. You just do not know. Libertarianism is a much more humble approach. And if you look at the unconscious life is, I know what I know. I've learned it before. I learned it in high school, and I don't need to think about it. I know people who are very successful in their stuff, but they have the most miserable life.
Oh yeah.
And they just go and they do what they do, and they have no consciousness whatsoever that this is something that's robbing their soul.
Yeah. I hear from conservatives that are the ones that are criticizing me all the time. They say things like, "Your ego is just too big, Carlin. You need to humble yourself," or "What you're doing is embarrassing right now." And I'm like, and I kind of think when people say that, I'm like, "A, I don't think my ego's that big. I think I'm just doing something in a way that you wouldn't do it, or I'm saying something in a way that you don't respond to it, but that doesn't mean like maybe you're just not my audience." Or what was the other thing? They say like I'm like, "Oh, what you said is like so embarrassing." I'm like, well, I'm not embarrassed by it. I actually feel pretty good about it. And so I think it's like it's sometimes it's this search for like approval or the way that we should do things gets in the way of what actually works for us. And I also think with libertarianism, there's an acknowledgement that not everyone belongs in our libertarian extremist community of New Hampshire, right, Dennis? Like not everyone is going to fit in here, but like there's some acknowledgement of that. And if they don't like it here, if they don't like our Twitter or whatever it is, they don't have to live here. They can go live in Massachusetts, and it's okay to want different things and like different things, and there's nothing wrong with that. And it doesn't mean that like what you want is worse or bad than what I want. It just means we want different things and we have different views of life. And one of the things I really appreciate, like I was asked earlier today, people were like, I blocked a whole bunch of people on Twitter today because I'm just tired of being yelled at about the Disney stuff. And so people are like, Carlin, how can you champion free speech if you're blocking people on Twitter? And I'm like, well, I'm voluntarily choosing not to associate with those people. Like they can cry off in the corner if they want to, and I hope they find each other and they console each other. But I can also make the choice not to put myself in that particular situation because it doesn't make me happy and it doesn't facilitate my work. Do you think that that's like a characteristic of libertarian culture of just like saying, okay, this isn't working for me, I'm going to go over here now?
I think one of the criticisms that we receive regularly is that irritates me the most is that libertarians are arrogant. I'm going, look, you guys actually think that you know better how to run my life when you don't even know me. You don't even know me, and you think you know so much better that you're willing to threaten me with death if I do not obey you. And you call me arrogant? I'm saying I barely understand myself. I really don't. There's a lot of nooks and crannies that I just do not know about myself. And I'm a traveler along that. I'm trying to find out, but I really don't know myself. I know sure, but one thing I know for sure, you don't know me. I know that for sure because you do not have anywhere near the information. And I also, as a libertarian, say, I don't know you. I don't know what's best for your life. I don't know what you want to do. Libertarianism is you do you, sweetheart, as long as you don't hurt somebody, you don't hit somebody, and you don't steal their stuff, right? Yeah, the playground version of libertarianism. There you go. You do you, however you choose, with the people you love, and support the community that you want, as long as you do not initiate hitting people and stealing their stuff. Now, what's wrong with that? And that's arrogant? How is that arrogant? As opposed to you saying, look, you will obey me, because my preferences for your body are X, Y, and Z. My preferences for how you labor are A, B, and C. My preferences for your associations are D, E, and F. And my preferences for how you spend the product of your labor are J, K, and L.
Well, you
Right?
know what it
And
is?
you will do that. Otherwise, I will hurt you.
Well, you know
Now,
what it go
how
ahead,
am I
sorry.
the arrogant one?
I agree with you. I always find like when someone says like I have such an ego or I'm arrogant, I'm like, who the heck are you? First of all, like it's never the people who actually know me in any way, shape, or form. I probably barely had a conversation with them and they're purporting to tell me who I am. But it's also like what I think is actually going on, Dennis, is I think that people who maybe haven't gotten to a place like that they are really kind of embracing personal responsibility and like empowerment, if they're not there yet, and that's not, everyone's on their own journey, so everyone has their own path, everyone gets there in their own best time. But if they're not there yet, the fact that you are there or the fact that I'm there, it like we reflect back to them kind of what's missing for them, and they might not be able to ignore. It's like this unconscious thing, like they might not be able to put their finger on it, but there's something maybe about the authenticity in the way that we're living or that we're communicating or that we're not seeking their approval necessarily, we're not seeking their buy-in to the way we choose to live our lives. I think that that can make some people deeply uncomfortable if they aren't at a place yet where they've embraced their own power and they're kind of looking at other people to validate where they are in life, when in fact they need to look inside themselves and validate themselves for themselves.
Yeah, yeah, I've heard that. I've heard that hypothesis, and I'm not 100% sold on it. I think
Okay.
that they're just so unconscious that and they have been told that they really do know. I mean, if you've talked to people, you're on Twitter, so you should know.
Hmm.
People on Twitter think that they know you. They know your secret thoughts. They know what you're actually intending, how you're manipulating this, how you're doing that. And what you really mean. You said X, but what you really mean is Y. And I'll go, and of course, why would you think that? Well, we can posit, well, they're doing it because they're envious or something like that. I don't
Yeah,
think that it's true. I think that they just really do not understand the epistemic problem here.
that might
The
be.
epistemic problem of knowledge in an infinite world. In an
Hmm.
infinite world where there is this gigantic diversity across every single person.
My coach tells me that every time we're able to pick out a problem or something we don't like in someone else, it's because that's actually a problem that we're seeing inside ourselves that we might not be able to admit to ourselves yet, because it's easier to pick out a problem in another person than it is to pick it out in ourselves. And if we're not ready to admit it to ourselves yet, well, gosh, isn't it easy to give criticism to someone else?
Yeah, there are some great exercises around that. It's called mirroring. It's called
Yes.
the mirror. So yeah, so find the person who irritates you the most,
Hmm.
and what is it that they're doing that you do? How does
Hmm.
that reflect something that's going on in your life? And I have to tell you, talk about switching the thing from being a victim of that person to having agency over that is just incredible. When you start saying no, I also share that character, because we share so many characteristics. We have them in different things. Just because we share characteristics doesn't mean that you know what's going on in me, especially in my conscious thoughts. And
Yes, that's very true.
I I'm one of those people. I'm not doing it right now, but I speak kind of slowly, and I think before I speak. Um,
Hmm.
and faster talkers will interject, and they'll complete my sentences before I finish, or they'll respond before I finish, and then they'll add something more, and then they'll talk about something else. And I talk about this as sister talk, because my wife, who's visiting her sisters right now, this is how they communicate. One sister will start talking, another sister will interject halfway through and start talking about something else. Another sister will come and she'll interrupt and go here, and I'm trying to follow the conversation, and I have no idea where we're going, what the conversation is about, or anything like that. But I really object, because a lot of times when I do speak, I have a thought that I'm trying to get out, and
Mhm.
it's taking me time to get it out. But when you interject, you assume that you know what my thought is. So a lot
Mhm.
of times I'll go, okay, you just interrupted me. Can you complete my thought for me? Very few human beings do that.
Hmm.
Can do that. And it's a little bit challenging to do it to somebody because of course they're just excited. It's a social venue and that type of stuff. And frankly, they weren't really interested in what you had to say, no matter how brilliant you were being.
Yeah. Isn't it the truth? Isn't it the
they just
truth?
they just wanted you to jump on the platform and talk.
Mhm.
Um, but there have been a maybe one person. It's not my wife, by
Mhm.
the way. Maybe one person who really could complete my thoughts. And after a while, I would go, "Oh, okay." Farshad. Yeah, okay, yeah, he interrupted me again, but I'm not gonna get pissed. He knows where I'm going.
I love it. Well, speaking of that, so I want to take this question from Node 86 just because I think that this is like a question that probably a lot of adults experience, and I want to know if we can maybe we can help suss out an answer. He says, at 35, I realized I don't have many friends. I read a
Hmm.
piece of advice to be the type of person I wish I would meet, still trying to be the best me, but have had good luck making new connections so far. And I wanted to read this because I do think that like a lot of adults, they do have trouble making friends and connecting with communities that are going to be a better community for them. And that's something I think that I once saw an article that basically says that adults make no new friends after the age of 30, which is really sad because like I don't even think you start finding yourself until you hit the age of 30. Maybe do you have any advice for someone like that, Dennis, that's in that trouble?
Do I have advice? Personal advice?
Yeah.
Well, I can talk a little bit about my experience. I remember coming back from college and going to my set of high school friends that I was, kind of, had hung out with through my high school, and just like kind of going, I have no similar interest, no connection with these people. There was one man who actually I did have a lot of connection to, and unfortunately, he's the one who died young.
Oh, I'm
He died.
sorry.
He died from early AIDS. He was like
Wow.
one of the first people to die from AIDS, and uh, and I it, it when I was in Massachusetts. So when I was I've been in what 6 authoritarian states. I'm now in the free state. When I was in Massachusetts, I was extremely well known. There were hundreds, if not thousands, of people who knew me, who had felt some sort of kinship.
Mhm.
I'm not really good with names, so I would be desperately going, Carol, who's that? Carol, that's trying to get my wife to save my ass because I can't remember people's names. But they're acquaintances, right?
Yeah.
Um, and I every New Year's, what I do is I kind of go through. I go, okay, who are the people in my life that I've met, and where do I feel that kinship with?
Mm.
It's going to be very, very few people. Now, I'm really odd. I'm very, very unusual. So I think there's a little bit of a burden on we who are not um, uh, in the middle of the of that curve of on various
We're
aspects.
either on the at the top of the bell curve or the bottom of the bell curve.
Yeah, so it's just very, very hard.
Yeah.
One of the things I do is I'm not particularly excited about small talk and things like that. Um, and so when I go to cocktail parties, what I do is I actually ask people deep questions about their lives.
Hmm.
And some people will scurry away about as fast as they can from me, which is good, right? I failed fast.
Yes, those are not your people,
I
and
mean,
that's okay. They can
this is
go
a
find other
person
people.
this is a person I really have no interest in chatting with. Other
Mhm.
people will get into like the most intense, fun discussions about that, and they'll actually tell me, of all the people at this party, you're the only one I really look forward to talking to.
Isn't it
So
the truth?
I think it's really important to say, okay, I'm unique. And what I'm looking for are these types of things. So what I look for are really serious conversations about our lives, what's really going on in our lives, how to make the world better. Those are the things. Those are the things that I get excited about.
Mhm.
And so if somebody comes in and I can take mushroom growing for a while, or I can get I'm always up for talking a little bit about movies and stuff like that. But you know, it doesn't feed me. It doesn't feed me. So I would actually recommend that the more unique you are, the more people you need to meet, and the
Mhm.
faster you have to fail. You have to fail a lot. It's like your sales example, Carlin, where you
Mhm.
have a product that you're selling that only a few people are going to go
Yeah.
for. A lot of people are selling a product that 70%, 80% of people are going to go through. So they don't have to go through that many.
Right.
Um, a number of us, though, are selling a very, very unique product. And so we just have to go through a lot more failures. It's just
Mhm.
part of the process.
And just being
Um,
okay with people saying no. It's okay
yeah,
for people to say no, because if they say no, you weren't the people that you were supposed to work with anyway.
that's right. I mean, the worst thing is to call somebody your friend and spend all your time doing it, and it's just so boring to you, or it doesn't feed your soul, or something like that.
Yes.
Who is it that really excites you, and you go, I want to be with that person. I'm excited to be with that person. And now you can be aggressive there and you say, look, I love talking with you, and this, I think we really have a good connection. Let's continue here. So I think really being true to yourself, and knowing that if you're kind of in that unusual category, I have a essay where I talk a little bit about this in more depth. Um, that it's okay that you're just gonna have to run through a lot of people, and
Mhm.
it's not bad. When I go to these cocktail parties, I know, there might be no one there that I'm really all that excited with. They'll just talk to a few people and that type of thing. Now, I moved. I was living in a place where almost all the things where people would start talking about passing this law or starting to do that law, and of course, as an ethicist, I'm going, wait a minute, you're going to threaten people with death because you disagree with them using their body to do this?
Mhm.
So almost immediately there'd be a pallor spread across the room. Um, so I was in the wrong fishing hole. That was a terrible place. Um, so what I did was, I moved to the free states, and now there's, libertarians all over the place, and we get into great conversations and deep conversations and fun,
Oh,
and
yeah.
and nobody freaks out. And every once in a while we'll get a commie come in and they'll talk about this stuff. There was one last night, and oh my God, I was listening to
Really?
it. I was just going, you know, I know people think like this. I know people think like this, and I just I feel almost ill listening to him.
I know, isn't it amazing when you find one in the wild and you're like, "Oh my god, this is real. This isn't just on Twitter, this is real."
So I'm sorry, sweetheart. I don't know who you are, who wrote that
Yeah.
in, but it's one of those things where you just go, okay, that's my fate. My fate is to actually work through a lot more cold
Mhm.
calls,
Yep.
um, and knowing, when you find something there, you grasp onto it, because that
Mhm.
is something really fantastic. And guess what? If you really are truly being yourself, when they bump into you and there is that connection, they're going to go, oh my God, that was different.
Yes, I think people can sniff out authenticity even if they aren't conscious of it. I think we all instinctively know when we're talking to a salesperson and when we're talking to someone who is being their true selves. And Deborah has a great comment here. She says, as an artist I know says, there will always be someone who likes your art, and they will find you eventually if you put your art out there. So just be your own favorite artist." And we see this with, like, comedians like Norm Macdonald too. Like, Norm Macdonald definitely did that with his comedy, where he would go on these, like, and I'm not, like, a big comedy person, so he wasn't my favorite, but I've heard tell. He would do these, like, long rambling jokes that weren't really funny, but he found the process of telling the joke just hilarious, so he would always amuse himself, and because he was, like, tickled at the joke he was telling, other people found it funny too. And I think that that's so true. It's like something like you have to buy into what you're doing, and if you're having a good time, if you're having fun, then other people pick up on that.
Right. And I mean, look, I'm not the everyman. Okay, great. I just have to live with that. That's just a fact of life. Um, and so therefore I will be in affinity with a much smaller subset of humanity. I
Mhm.
have to go and find where those people are, and I have to, and I have to work, offer myself quite a bit. Um, so, uh, when I was I was very lonely in. I talked about 10 different programs. I was very lonely in most of those programs. And then when I actually went into like some schools that really did fit me, it was like night and day. And to tell you the truth, that's the way I feel in the Free State. I
Mm.
feel like, I can't believe I spent 60 years in those god awful places, and oh my god. And now I feel like, yeah, I'm home. I'm
Yeah.
home. Now the question is, where's your home? Where's your fishing hole? I mean, if you love dinosaurs, if that's really the thing that sets you the most, there's this one boy who just absolutely adores dinosaurs. Well, go to the Museum of Science, and the Natural Museum of Science, and hang out in the dinosaur thing and talk to people about it. Become a docent, and then find other people who are interested in that. And who knows where you'll go. But don't go to some place where, don't go to the racetrack and talk about dinosaurs and think you're match somebody there. So find your fishing hole, and understand that you're a unique human being. We all are unique human beings, and that's okay. That's okay. You just need to fail. You need to fail to succeed. You just need to fail really fast. Go and go through a lot of people. Go through a lot
Mhm.
of people. I mean, and this is true also of spouses. I think that so
Yeah.
many people kind of go, oh my gosh, this woman. Now I'll speak from my experience. This woman is so beautiful, and blah 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 blah, and she's my life would be perfect if she liked me. Well, really, really.
You don't know that. You don't know
I mean,
that.
so often, on terms of relationships, we're using just the worst criteria.
Oh my
Um,
god. I know.
I maybe
And
someday
and
we'll talk
and you
about
kn
relationships.
Oh, we should
Let
talk about relationships, and it's like, it's always the people who have never had a successful relationship that are the first people to give relationship advice. Like, I can't tell you how many unmarried people on Twitter give me marriage advice, and I'm like, "I have been married almost 11 years." Like,
Well, I've been married 41 years,
yes, you have a
and
little bit
I
more
was
experience.
never, ever, ever going to get married. And I eventually found out through my personal growth work why that was. There's this guy who wrote in the 80s or 90s, Harville Hendricks. He's Getting the Love That You Want. But he had a hypothesis that romantic love, that first spark, that thing that really excites you and gets you really, oh my God, this is what I want for my life. Okay, that's
Mhm.
actually based on your unconscious awareness of the negative characteristic of a primary caretaker. So just to put
Yes.
this into
Yeah.
perspective, okay, my mother was an extreme narcissist. Um, and so the type of woman I liked, and I'm going to go way, way. Can I characterize the type of woman and not get woked out here?
Yes.
Okay, so think New York Jap. Okay, okay.
That
So
wasn't what I was expecting, Dennis, but okay.
that was the type of woman, kind of the castrating, whiny, just all about her and stuff like that. Now, what happens is early on in the relationship, that she has like this kind of narcissistic thing, but
Mhm.
but she's on good behavior, and so you go, oh my God, I can actually heal this relationship with my mother.
Mhm.
I can heal this relationship with my mother through this other relationship. The love that I didn't get, she's giving it to me, even though she's got that same flaw in her.
You
Oh
know,
my God, I feel so good. It's going right down to the cradle in your soul, and you're like head over heels in love. And but this is so fantastic. Well, guess what? She's narcissistic, and she
mhm.
was just on her good behavior. And at some point, hopefully, well before you're engaged, you'll realize, oh my God, she's just mean.
Yeah. No, I mean, it's
She's
actually
mean and
funny
self-centered.
in the Zoom call that I had with my locals just the other day, we were actually talking about this. We were talking about, the Johnny Depp and Amanda Heard trial, and we were talking about how Johnny Depp essentially and Amber Heard married his mother. Like, Johnny Depp had, like, a 14-year relationship with the mother of his children. Like, they were together a long time, and he left her to marry Amber Heard, who is basically his narcissistic mother, and look how well
Mhm.
that turned out.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
Yep.
And so I was at least smart enough to say, well, you know, the women I'm going for, um, I don't want to live the rest of my life with that. I had, it was just too sick an environment for me when I was a child. I don't want to live like that, you know. Um, the trouble was that I wasn't romantically interested in the nice girls, even though the nice girls kind of liked me,
Yeah.
Um, I had a whole line of preachers' kids who really liked me and stuff like that. But they weren't the kind of the mean, fast talking New Yorker who was kind of eventually castrate you. And so
Mhm.
so I had to get over that. And my wife, whom I've been married now for 41 years. We were really good friends for 4 years, really good friends. And she really wanted to go out with me. I had no inclination whatsoever to go out with her, none whatsoever, because she was from Indiana. She was nice. She listened, blah, 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 all that type of stuff. So, we were talking a little bit about being honest with yourself about what you really want.
Mhm.
Where's the honesty? I'm not being dishonest. I don't have a clue what would
Mm.
really be the best thing for my life. I mean, I know I could have been miserable 1,000 different ways. And had I just gone unconsciously into those ways and just said, well, I guess I got to get married. I'll get married to this woman here.
Mhm.
Um, I would have been miserable. It would have been such a terrible life. And instead, my life is blessed. My number one blessing
Mhm.
is that. And it came out of, you know, this very hard discovery process.
Mhm. Mhm. Well, and thank God for Carol, she keeps you in line. Well, Dennis, I wanna just, I wanna move on and change the subject really quick and touch on Florida, because I know you have some opinions about me getting myself in trouble on Twitter there. But before we kind of like, move on from this part, do you have anything else to add to, the personal development piece of it?
Well, I guess I wanted to say that,
Yeah.
what happened was, if over time I got more into libertarianism, and then I kind of became disillusioned that we ever would get to a free society. And I went to a meeting with Mary Ruwart, who was the vice presidential candidate. And she talked about,
And the Judicial Committee chairwoman who
she
we
is,
will be watching tomorrow
she
night.
is. She is. And she talked about how, look, we're not making allies with segments of the population that really should be allied with us. And then
Mhm.
she said, there's this group that's focused on personal responsibility and creating what you really want in life and removing the obstacles. And I knew exactly whom she was talking about. I was actually part of those groups. Now, almost every single one of those people was a very strong um, a progressive authoritarian, uh,
Yes.
in addition to wanting a better life. So there was that, but she said, "Look, they value a lot of the values that we have. They also value. So why can we not talk to them?" So
Mhm.
I actually got really inspired by that, and I started a whole a group called Personal Growth Network. That's what PGN stands for, Personal Growth
Mhm.
Network, and I built that from zero to having 4,500 members
Wow.
in 4 years. We were doing 250 events a year. I was having
Wow.
conventions where we had all this, and it was all positive psychology, all kind. We weren't doing any of that healing stuff or laying of the hands or anything like
I
that.
do the healing stuff. Don't
None of that.
knock it.
None of that.
You're like, you're not coming to my event.
None of the astrology or the
Oh, come
what's the other thing that you
on.
do? None.
Let me follow my bliss,
It was
Dennis.
all cognitive. It was all science based. But and my thought was, look, yes, you guys really want this removing the internal obstacles. But guess what? As soon as you do that, there are external obstacles in your way. Don't you also want those? And I thought I could bring those two things together.
Mhm.
And Trump got elected, and I saw the people. Sweetie, stop.
Ron Paul is having some feelings right now.
Yes, he is. He's having his feels. Stop. And I saw the people who were really into caring for each other and supporting each other and understanding that we're all in different paths turn into the most hateful people. And they were using being in personal growth as an example of their superiority.
Oh, I know. Oh, I hate that.
And how those people don't do that. They don't think, and it was just so discouraging. That's actually when I gave up on Personal Growth Network. I turned that over to a group and another group, and I basically went into straight full-time ethics. I said, look, I have to just attack this on ethics, and because people just do not understand the ethics that we're talking about here of self-ownership, and that if you deny self-ownership, you're talking about slavery, and we cannot allow slavery in this world. So I then went on a bender for about ethics, and I did that, and eventually I came here to the Free State, and I haven't been happier here, since I've this. I finally found I failed in so many other projects, and I'm really excited about Free State Project.
No, it's definitely the best. We actually have Jess Pelletier in the chat. She says, has Dennis told everyone they're not your effing friends yet? Which is, I think, is actually a great transition, Dennis, because what did I write on Twitter the other day, and all the conservatives who were yelling at me about my criticism of like Ron DeSantis? I said, the state is not your fucking friend. And I was channeling you when I did that.
This has to do with a rant that I did at PorcFest. I think it was last year. I didn't win the rant contest because of bias for the judges, but it has become a slogan around the Free State now, where basically I said, look, when you're in an authoritarian state and you say, I do not want to move to the Free State because I don't want to leave my family and friends, but your family and friends are okay with you being chained, caged, beaten, maimed, or even killed for disobeying their rulers, about your body, about your labor, about your associations, or about your property, that they're okay with that, they're not friend material. And my line was, they're not your effing friends. And I said that with great energy and over and over again. But because they're the people that we saw in this COVID regime. They're the people who will turn you in.
Oh,
and they're very sad about it. They go, oh, poor Dennis. Oh, geez, he just wouldn't listen to the rules. We had rules, But they're the ones who turned in Anne Frank. They're the ones who killed all the in Zimbabwe. They're the ones, the evil isn't done by the ruling class. The evil is done by your neighbors. And if they actually have broken ethics, they will obey the authorities and they will complete the evil. And I just have to say that if they will do that to you, they're not your effing friends. So that's where that saying comes from.
No, I love it, and the reason I wanted to use this as a transition into talking about the stuff in Florida, and I think this is important just because it's timely, but I also just want to provide people with like why, you don't have to agree with everything I've said, but I was looking at this thing that that Ron DeSantis and the Republicans did in Florida, in regards to taking away Disney's like special privileges, and last week when I first heard about it, part of me was like, okay, they've gotten some gumption. They're actually doing something. I do have appreciation for people who do things. And so that was something new. But then I started thinking about it and I was like, holy shit, they're the state. And they are basically retaliating against a private company for protected political speech because the company, even though it's a giant mega billion-dollar corporation, they criticized the government, and then the government took away special status that they've had for 50 years as, I think, blatant retaliation for them criticizing the government. And I was like, hang on, hang on, hang on. I don't think, like, at least from a libertarian perspective, I don't think that this is above board what they're doing. What do you think about what's going on?
Yeah, it's so hard because I understand my friends, the conservatives, upset. Okay,
Mm-hmm.
they get whomped on all the time, and
Yes.
the laws are written in such a way to kind of whomp on them, and then all of a sudden they get some power. So they have DeSantis in there hanging on. I mean, what did DeSantis win by 2 votes or something like that?
Yeah, something
So
like that.
so
And
now
then
they're
and then
feeling
his opponent ended up in an orgy in a hotel not too long after that, so it's probably worked out for the best.
now,
Coke-filled orgy.
now they feel that that they will forever hold power in Florida. I'm going,
Yeah.
why would you think that? I don't
Mhm.
know what you're thinking, guys. And so now they're saying, well, because we're conservative authoritarians, not libertarians, we can use the power of the state to whomp on our enemies and do good for our friends. And it's like,
Mhm.
no, ethically, you may not use violence, the state violence. You may not use proxy violence to hurt other people and to steal from other people to give to your friends. Now, the whole Disney thing is so complex, and that whole don't say gay bill.
Mhm.
Don't you love how the left is so expert at framing the
Oh
debate?
god, it's
Isn't that
so
incredible?
awful.
I
I
mean,
mean, it's
I
like,
mean, we could have called it "Don't Trans Kindergarteners," right? We
well,
could have said
yes.
it's the "Don't Trans Kindergarteners" bill. Now that would have been a totally different discussion than "Don't Say Gay" bill, which is not what that was not the intention. But anyway, um, so and then we have this monstrosity, which is government education, government indoctrination of
Mhm.
children. We if you look at what the privileges were that Disney had, all they were doing was self-rule. From a
That's
libertarian perspective, every single one of us should be doing self-rule.
that's what
Every single one of us should have that type of authority and be able to hire our own police, be able to hire our own garbage, and be able to do with our property what we choose to do and not have to go to our masters and get permission from them on penalty of death.
Well, that was my position, and you know who it was that started to change my mind about this? It was Jeremy Kauffman, of course it was, and, Jeremy put out a video basically saying, "You know what? Disney World is actually really well run, it's clean, like, people are friendly, like, there's no crime, like, maybe Disney should secede from Florida." And I was kinda like, "Holy shit, he's right." And that was when I started going down this path, and I was like, why is it, if the state giveth, the state can taketh away, first of all. And I don't think, one of my locals community members made a really great point today. Everyone's saying, like, the state took away special privileges. Well, you know what's a special privilege? A driver's license. How would you like it if the state took your driver's license away from you because you criticized the government? It's the same thing, it's just on a different scale. And I was like, if the Republicans were really serious about leveling the playing field, you know what they would have done, Dennis? They would have given every single business in Florida the same exemptions that they gave to Disney, and that would have leveled the playing field.
Could you imagine that? That would have been a libertarian society. Yeah, I
Yeah.
mean, Disney is actually an example of what happens when you give autonomy to people. You allow them to own their own property and to take care of it and to serve customers and to you could just imagine that the typical authoritarian concerns about Disney having an autonomous location. Who's going to protect the people? No, it's they're it's just such a great example. So, and you said if the government giveth a privilege, then they take it away. No, it's backwards.
Okay.
They've taken away our rights as human beings. They've taken away our most basic right of self-ownership. They have turned us into slaves to rulers. Now, in Disney's cases, they lifted that. They said, okay, you're not our slaves anymore. You can go off and do this under these conditions. I mean, you're still more slaves, but we're going to give you, you're going to be the house, the city, in the deep South. There actually used to be blacks who could actually carry guns, and that they were slaves. They could carry guns. They went into the city. They worked at the city and all that. They kept part of their money. They were still slaves, though.
Yeah.
They were still slaves. And so they always owed part of their labor back, and they, to their master and all this type of stuff. So no, I mean, it's not, it's they taketh and then they return part of it back to it, but they can take it away again from you.
Yeah.
And no, the libertarian ethical perspective is no, they may not do that. They have done it because they have more guns, and they are brutal psychopaths, but they do not have any ethical right to do that. So just on that basis, I mean, the libertarian answer, the conservatives are going, well, we're going to smack it. You actually give the libertarian answer. Well, we're going to give it to everyone. You're not going to have a special status where everyone gets a special status. You get a car, you get a car. You own your body. You own your body. You own your body. Everyone's free. I mean, that would have been really cool.
And isn't it amazing that they've I mean, we talked about the liberal branding of the Don't Say Gay bill. Isn't it amazing that conservatives have successfully branded the Disney thing as special privileges, as though it's not something that they were entitled to in the first place. It's a gift that has been given to them.
Drives me nuts. How is not being a slave a special privilege? Only if you assume that your rulers, the ruling class, owns you, that they have the right to control your body, and that and that when they deign not to, well, that's them giving you something. Well, no, it's not. It's them stopping to violate you on those aspects of your life. But the thing that always gets me crazy about the conservatives is every time they get into power, you know what they do? They increase government power.
I know.
And they expand government power, and they go, well, we'll use this for good, in their idea of good, which in their case, they make some sort of circuitous route of protecting children. You know how you protect children? Get rid of government schooling. Right? Then you protect children, you protect parents, you protect teachers, everybody owns themselves. And now we have a free exchange, and now allow people to find the system and the training and the teaching. And we don't have to have this national debate over when one can say gay to my child. How about I decide that with the school of my choice? How about that? Just get the heck out of my life. But they did this with the Patriot Act. And when they were doing it with the Patriot Act, I was screaming just as loudly. What are you doing? Do you not understand that they are going to use this against you? And sure enough, domestic terrorism is the number one concern. Well, you know what domestic terrorism is? It's mothers going in, being upset about their children being violated in schools. The schools are doing things that they would not want that school to do. The parents don't have the option to pull their kids out. Their money is being extorted. The child is being forced into there. Well, the libertarian answer is free the schools. Stop, stop going and attacking people overseas so they come over here to terrorize us. Yeah. Just stop all of your terrible things that you're doing to people. But no, conservatives have to say, oh yeah, we got the power now, so we're going to go ahead and smack these guys down. We saw that with Sununu. Sununu is not a libertarian. He's a conservative authoritarian. And some of the things he did, I don't think I'm ever going to be able to forgive him for.
Oh no, absolutely not.
He was a thug and a brute. Ethically, he had no right to do that to another human being. He did it only because he thinks that he somehow has ownership over us. He does not.
No.
He does not own us.
No, so, I go ahead.
So yeah. So first of all, the special privilege was not special privilege. It was just a releasing from the bonds of some subset of slavery. Secondly, there is this gigantic boomerang effect. Every time that you increase the power of government, it will be used against you. Guaranteed, it will be used against you. And so, it may not be this year because you still have DeSantis in there. Maybe it'll be 3 years from now when you have Christie in there, Florida, and you're going, oh, why did I move down to Florida?
Well, you know what I said too is if you guys and I can't think of a case where there's been a Democratic state government that has actually targeted like a Republican or conservative business via legislation in the same way that the Republican government targeted Disney via legislation. But let's just like play with this idea for a second, because if the Republicans do something with government, the Democrats are not only going to do that same thing, but they're going to try to one up them just because they can. Like, what if the state of California decided through legislation in the California House of Representatives and their Senate to ban the sale of MyPillow in the state of California because they don't like the political views of Mike Lindell. And I put that out on Twitter earlier, and people were like, that would never happen. I'm like, really? Because that's literally what you just did to Disney.
Yeah. You know what else won't happen? That they will lock you up in your apartment and not allow you to go out.
Yeah.
That would never happen. That they'll ignore decades and decades of science and require you to wear face masks all over the place, regardless of your physical condition. That will never happen. That they will take billions of dollars out from you. So, tens of thousands of dollars from each and every one of us. They'll steal that in terms of inflation. That's the effect that we're feeling now. They'll give it to big pharma that will put out a new type of thing that they won't test. They'll tell you it's totally safe and effective, and it won't work. That would never happen. Never in a million years will they force you to inject a foreign chemical into your body because that's your body. I'm so tired of people underestimating the brutality of authoritarianism. Yeah. Authoritarianism is based on slavery. That is what authoritarianism is. It is saying that someone else, a ruling class, the ruler, actually has a superior ownership over your body, and therefore can tell you how you must have your body, how you may move your body, how you may labor it, how you may associate it, and what you may do with its product. And that they own you. Libertarianism is an abolitionist movement. It's saying, no, let's stop it. So the solution here, if we had a libertarian here and not an authoritarian conservative in Florida, and I keep trying to tell my libertarian friends who keep on saying, oh, Florida is the next free state project. No, it's not.
No, we don't have to wear jackets in Florida. I'm like, okay, but you just like use the state to censor speech. Okay.
Yeah. It's not going to be jackets. It's going to be straight jackets, baby.
Yeah.
I keep telling them, look. Well, anyway, I do want to say one more thing.
Yeah.
The thing that drives me nuts here, though, is the cronyism. And cronyism is what greases the wheels. So that Disney got out from their chains because they did some sort of kickback and that type of stuff. And they also get favorable. I mean, the laws that we like is releasing them to be able to hire the water and sewage management that they prefer. That's what we prefer. That's the libertarians say, yeah, that's your business. You do that. What we don't say is, oh, well, you're going to be building this, or we'll take that from these homeowners by eminent domain. Or we're going to give you some sort of tax subsidy on this. We'll steal money, extort money from these people and give it to you for this. That type of cronyism is so rampant. Again, the solution is to remove this government enslavement of the people. Allow people to go into this libertarian world where we treat each other humanely and respectfully, and we identify and accept each person's sovereignty. And where we say, it's not the golden rule or the platinum rule. It's any rule that you want with a codicil, as long as they consent. Because that's all we're talking about is consensual, win-win, voluntary relationships. That's all we're talking about. That's all we're trying to achieve. So, yeah, I mean, I actually was kind of impressed with you because we have I think maybe 2/3, maybe 3/4 of libertarians come from the conservative side, and so of course they have these vestiges, appendixes of conservative authoritarianism in them. And every once in a while, one of them will ask me my opinion. I go, yeah, and I'll usually just say, you don't realize as soon as you give them this power, they will use it against you.
Mm-hmm.
Do not ever do that. We are in the business of breaking chains. We are not in the business of adding chains just to get even with people we don't like.
So I got to the right answer all by myself, Dennis. I didn't even
I
have
was
to ask
impressed.
you.
I was impressed.
It took me a couple days because I was thrown off by the fact that the Republicans actually did something, but then I got there.
Well,
And it was
I did hear from some people. I wasn't really paying attention. I'm too busy to pay attention to these things. But there was somebody who was really upset with something about free speech and grooming that you said, or something like that.
that grooming is protected speech. It is. It is. I'm sorry, because grooming actually has multiple definitions. It's not always
Yes,
sexual.
this is the thing that drives me nuts. This is the thing that drives me nuts. That people use the word grooming, meaning to influence or to teach or indoctrinate, or to I mean, all schools indoctrinate. Parents indoctrinate. It's just teaching to a doctrine.
And this is what people don't understand. Grooming is not only protected speech. Grooming is right now federally sanctioned in every public school in this country via money that they received during the COVID pandemic. So don't tell me grooming's not protected. It absolutely is.
So you're actually using the second, using grooming. But what they're doing, which is a very clever trick, and it's being used over and over. It was used against Tom Woods. It's being used over and over again. Is they conflate the word grooming with the term childhood sexual grooming.
Yeah.
Right. Childhood sexual grooming. So what I'm trying to do is I'm actually trying to abuse you and rape you. Right.
Mm-hmm.
That is my goal here. As opposed to I'm teaching you a doctrine and that type of stuff. But anyway, it's an interesting topic. It's one of those ones that would be great for the Shell for a debate night. If maybe after you're successful, once you become governor, you can come down and
okay. I'll
debate that. I think there's a couple people here who would like to argue that with you, and it would be just great. It'd just be great to have a good discussion there. But I think that if your point is that they're conflating two terms.
Yes. I mean, and there is a proper definition of grooming that has been put out by James Lindsay that is not just about, actual physical. It's more about a mental process where you're breaking down kids' inhibitions and you're trying to indoctrinate them into a far left ideology. And that ideology could have to do with your sexual identity or your gender identity, but it also could have to do with race. It could have to do with politics. It is not necessarily just about, and this definition is all over the internet. So I don't know what people are so upset about, because I've been very clear about no, I know what they're upset about. They want to complain about something and they want to nail me with something so that they can get their owns in the libertarian Facebook groups, whatever.
The whole thing is, you should just say Horace Mann's stated intention was to groom children.
Yes.
He wanted to groom children to be Protestants.
Mm-hmm.
He wanted specifically to go against the Catholics, right? That's why he brought government schooling to the U.S. Wasn't to educate kids; it was to get them away from those Catholics. To protect the children from Catholics.
Oh, God. Well, I'm sure there's a lot we could continue to go on for here, but we're heading up to almost 2 hours. So we're going to start. I know it always goes so quick, but Dennis, I so appreciate your perspective. Thank you again for coming back on the channel today. Is there anything that you would like to plug while we're here?
Oh, if anybody is not in the free state and they really are liberty oriented, if you're conservative oriented, I think that there are good places to go. I think Florida, Texas, if you're kind of more, fairly authoritarian conservative, Tennessee, Indiana, there are good places to go for that. But if you're really liberty oriented, there's only one place. And we talked about, they're not your effing friends. If you're in one of the authoritarian 49 and you have this liberty streak in you, you will always feel a fish out of water. You'll always feel alone, because you're surrounded by cannibals. You know, you are a non-cannibal around people who eat each other, and they think it's totally normal. And you go, Ronnie, stop it, Ronnie. Ronnie's causing some trouble. Good boy, come here, baby. And so you're going, you know, and you feel so out of it because everyone's going, oh yeah, these eyeballs are so good. And you go, you can't do that to people. and they go, what do you mean? We all do it. That's you're the one that's weird. How weird are you? You know? So I would highly recommend that, you know, come out. You know, we have the Shell and other community clubhouses. We're opening up more clubhouses this year. We have Liberty bus tours. We have
you just opened up a
trip.
hotel. You just opened up a motel or a B&B.
Just opened up the Independence Inn in Stratford. It's right in the center of the east part of the state. So you can go there and check out Lakes region and Concord and Manchester, Southern region and Seacoast and Moose Mountain region. I mean, you're right in the center of everything. Great spot. We set it up for, you know, for everyone, but it should be, I mean, we call it the Independence Inn because it should be leading to your independence. We have a sailboat trip coming up in the end of August.
I've thought about going on this sailboat trip. I really did. Oh God, I should. I think it's over Victor's birthday.
What a great birthday gift. What a great birthday
I'm a little scared about it being cold and being on an old boat.
No, the boat's not that old. It's a fantastic boat. And you know, you wear layers. But it's fantastic. But anyway, it's a fantastic thing. I wanted to take over the entire boat, but I didn't. So we do have some authoritarians. Carol and I went on that boat trip last year. It was fantastic. We absolutely loved it. The trouble was it was all authoritarians there. And so, you know, I would be like sitting there and they start talking about these terrible eating of eyeballs and all the other things that authoritarian cannibals talk about. And I would just kind of get a little bit sick and walk away. So I thought this trip would be so fantastic if we got more libertarians on it. So we have more than half the boat. We have more than half the boat, which are Liberty people. So come and join us. I think there's a couple more berths there. If you're not going to Pork Fest, you're probably out of luck. It's just so hard to get in now. But this probably will be my last year organizing it. So you know, maybe Carlin, you can take over for next year.
Oh, I don't know about that, Dennis, but I'll certainly come and hang out for the week. And I'm really looking forward to Pork Fest. And in a month, we're going to be in Reno. We're going to complete the takeover of the Libertarian Party. That's going to be pretty great. And then we're going to all sailing down to Pork Fest at the end of June.
I thought it was so great because, you know, I wasn't even Mises caucus. I got the most delegate votes.
You did.
Of the thing. I was going, you know, and they're going, oh, they're only Mises. I go, you know, I actually joined the Mises caucus when I was trying to make bridges to all these really antagonistic groups that were just so angry and so, you know, and I just was going, you know, why are you being so mean? You know, I'm just trying to find win-win here. I mean, I'm doing what we're supposed to do. I'm listening to you carefully, trying to find win-win. You're just some Trumper. And I go, I'm coming from the socialist left. What are you
They do the same for me. I'm like, I was a Democrat for 20 years. I was a Republican for about 15 minutes, and it was a mistake.
Yeah, and they know exactly what I'm thinking, and you know, I'm going, oh man, you know, I give up. I guess I'm Mises caucus.
Whatever. We've got one more month, and then they're all gonna. I'm gonna start a betting pool about when John Phillips is gonna rage quit the Libertarian Party. And you know, I'm gonna have during Reno on it. That's my bet. But Dennis, thank you again for coming on the channel. Always a pleasure to talk to you. Looking forward to Pork Fest. Looking forward to hanging out in Reno. It's gonna be great. Guys, that's all we have for today. But keep in mind, for our libertarian friends, that tomorrow I feel like I've officially been dubbed the Massachusetts drama stream, Judiciary Committee hearing. I will be streaming it on this channel. I know that this is not the most interesting thing for most people, but you know what? They try to keep these things hidden. They aren't streaming it anywhere else. Justin O'Donnell couldn't do it. Karen Ann Harlos apparently is busy. So I am carrying the torch. And even though I'm getting a tattoo tomorrow for half the day, I will be coming home and sitting here and watching the Committee hearing on the channel. We'll have the chat going because inevitably they're going to shut down the chat and the Zoom anyway. So head over here. We're going to have a great time watching the showdown between Massachusetts and Lord Queen Whitney. And we're going to see exactly how that goes. Guys,
is that in front of Mary Ruart?
yeah.
Oh,
Yeah,
wow.
it's the appeal hearing, I think,
I
on
love Mary
Whitney's
Ruart.
ruling,
She's
or I don't know exactly what it. I have not, Dennis. Like, there's been so much libertarian drama lately. I have not been able to keep up with it all. So I need to go watch some of Karen Ann Harlos's channel tonight and figure out what's going on. But thanks again, guys. I will be back tomorrow. We're gonna start the stream at around 6:15. Take care. Have a great rest of your day. Mouth the like button on the way out the door, and we'll see you soon.